Today we have with us Marie McGuire, who is a lovely lady who's come from a very well-known family in our community. She has been a good friend, a good mentor, and a lovely patron of the library. I'd like to ask you, Marie, if you would mind, to be kind enough to give us a little background of your family and what it was like to grow up in Secaucus.
Thank you. Thank you for the introduction, Kathy. Growing up in Secaucus was a lovely experience for me. It was an entirely different town. Now, I'm 80 years old now, so when you start thinking of my childhood, you know, when I was 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, we were part of a stoop community. Yep. Everybody sat on their front steps. They didn't have patios in the back then. And you knew all your neighbors. Every mother on the block was your mother. If your mother wasn't available, you fell, they could put the Band-Aid on your knee. So we would look for different things to do. You'd explore. There were a lot of empty lots then that were even part of the Meadowlands Commission. There were activities. You rode your bicycle. That was exciting. And it wasn't until you got to the junior high school that you knew people from all sections of town. So what was your escape? Well, your escape in that many cases was the library. I come from a family, mom and dad, and my younger brother Michael. And it was an experience for us to go to the library because you could look at all the books and see how exciting they were just looking at the covers. And maybe we could get a book about some strange place, or we could get one that was just funny. But it was fun growing up in town. Everybody knew everybody.
Right. Unlike now, although we know most everybody now.
We know a lot of people now because in many cases the library has been an asset in that respect.
That's true. There's many people that made friendships here. Take us back, though, again in time to when you were on your way to visit the library for the first time. What was the town like when you walked from your house to the town hall? What were the grounds like outside of the library, if you can recall? And what were your memories upon entering the building? I know you had to pass the police station, right. And, you know, let me just see what you thought.
At that time, we lived in the center of town, in the 2nd Street area there. So we would be walking down, and you just walked and you saw houses, a few empty lots. And then when you got down to the plaza, it was an experience. There was no Acme, or Acme, however you want to say it. There was no firehouse or the library was then too. That was all meadow. That didn't come until later. That was just open space. Route 3 wasn't there, in the Meadowlands there. What was there is my uncle's drugstore, a few other little stores, another drugstore in town, Alwana had a drugstore, and we would walk up and just look, and it was exciting just being out and being in the town. And my mother would be holding my hand and my brother's and bringing us up to the library. When we got to the town hall, that was the impressive building in town. You know, it just looked out at you, and you would look up, you know, and say, what wonders does this building hold for me? I knew it was called the municipal building. We called it the town hall then. And we knew the police were there, you know, but then when we went inside, you just looked around at the high ceiling and the steps, and the steps, and the steps. It just seemed never ending, you know. God bless my mother for bringing us and going up those steps with us. And then, as I say, when you went in, the excitement as you were greeted by Mrs. Studley there, who was the librarian when I went then as a young child. And you could look all around in the limited space we did have. Most of the time we went during the day. If you went at night, you were greeted by the 8 o'clock siren, or whistle as we used to call it. And you stood there and thought that there had to be an earthquake because the whole building shook when the siren went off in the town hall. It was for fires, and also the 8 o'clock whistle, which greeted us all and said, run home. You have exactly 5 minutes to get there before your mother's looking for you. But it was an exciting experience. because it was the great place to be.
Well, I really get the sense that you're saying a charming little building.
Right.
I know that that's what I've heard before, and that's what I envision. I haven't been there, but I get it from you, and I get it from others I've spoken to, that it was a special little place, an
Right.
attic.
It was. If you can look at pictures from it, and things like that, you can see it suited the community at that time.
At that time, right. Both you and your husband Joe were educators, and yet if not busy enough, you became active in the library when it was located in the Plaza Center site. Could you tell us about that? Because I've heard stories.
My husband was a library enthusiast. I think that if there were living quarters and libraries, he would be there. He would get a room so he could just go around, but he loved to browse, look around. And then we heard about the library running the story hour, for the children. And he felt that what he wanted to do was to start the story hour. It actually came from my husband, Joseph. But we started it, and we were helped by an older gentleman and a young lady that I had taught in the 5th grade in Secaucus. And the 4 of us would run little story hours during the summer. It was an enjoyable experience, and I think it gave the younger children something else to do. No school, great, yeah, but what are we going to do? Well, we can go to the library. We can go to the library and pick out a book, and we can go to the library and listen to, as we affectionately called my husband, Father Goose at that time. But it was a wonderful experience. I think we enjoyed it more than the children. When you read a story to a child and you know that you have reached that child, and you see the glow in his or her eyes, and the thrill and the enjoyment and the pleasure that tot is getting, you just fill up yourself. And now it's all those little commercials they have where they use babies, after they hear a sound or something. Well,
Yes.
we had that long before television showed that reality business. It was a wonderful experience to do that. And we were always at the library anyway.
Your tradition of summertime library school continues to this
Yes.
day.
I was lovely. It's always good to
2014.
hear that when I see it going on.
Right. It was always a winter program, and then it ended, and that was it, until you and your husband came along. So
Right.
there's
And
many,
our
many
two
children
elders, yes.
that have to say thank you to the McGuires.
And we say they're welcome because we got the pleasure
Yes.
just as much as they did.
On that same topic of volunteering, when the Friends of the Library was established in 1997, we searched for a president who would lead us to success in our goal of assisting the library to be the educational, informational, and recreational hub of the community. We didn't have to look too far when we asked you if you would fill that position. What was it like to be president of this new dynamic club?
Well, first of all, I considered it an honor. And I considered it a responsibility. Having been elected the first president, I felt that I had to set a standard. No one said I had to do anything like that, but that was something I felt was important. Set the standard for other presidents to follow and other members to follow. But I knew I would not be able to do it alone, so I sought help from the community. And working with you as librarian was very important, I felt, for us to bring programs into the building, to let them know we were more than just a library. We were a community resource. Now, one of the things that I felt we did to bring community members in was to run the programs. We ran the program about the history of Secaucus. We brought in a lot of older residents who brought in old maps and diagrams, and they talked about these things. And I think they were honored that we felt that was an important thing to bring to our community resource. Then to bring history, because the library services all areas. We brought in veterans from the wars. And how many people really knew how many of our men and women were in World War II? How many were captured? How many were wounded? I mean, I don't think we knew all of that. I knew some of it. I always remember the sign we had in front of the municipal building where the original library was that listed all of our servicemen.
Yes.
And saw the, remember the gold stars that were there and the names of the streets. So I think that by bringing in programs like that, and then inviting the history classes from the high school to come down and see the displays, because these gentlemen had brought back a lot of the awards, not awards, but things they had treasured because they found bayonets and objects from the different allies and objects from the Axis, that we fought against. So I thought that that was good too, because whether they got something from the display or not, as the history teachers spoke to them, they saw that this was World War II. We were involved. Everybody was involved. Little children were involved in their schools by bringing in newspaper and such. So this way the young people got to meet those who had fought in the war to help us, to save us. And I think that was the kind of program we ran that I thought went very well, because it brought in different people to the library and they found out what the resources were. So I think that that was important. The continuation of the mini fair I thought was important. At the time I was president, we were in the library in the center of town. And we had our mini fair out in the grounds of Buckmellow Park and in the library too. So I think that that was the thing that I felt I fulfilled my responsibility. And I felt working with the library, yourself and the staff, we were able to achieve a great deal. I personally, and to backtrack a little bit, other than friends, the library was always very important to me and to my husband. I mention him because we were always in the library together. What did we use the library for? Well, to take books out, to spend some time browsing. We also would use the library if we were going on trips. If we were going to, let's say, a European country, we would go to the children's section of the library. They had books about geography, about interesting places, and if you looked at those books, you were further strengthened. What is it I want to see in this country? Because they always highlighted the important things.
Exactly.
What is the Eiffel Tower? Oh, I saw a picture of it here. What was Big Ben? Was that a tall gentleman? No, that was this big lot. And we got that from the library. If we were going to a foreign country, what do you order when you go and eat? Have some knowledge of Spanish, some knowledge of Italian. What would I do in France if I went there? We looked at cookbooks. The library had many cookbooks from all different cultures. We would look at them, see what we would like, write that down in French, and then we were able to order a meal. We traveled with people in groups, and we saw people eating the same thing day and day because they didn't know how to order anything, and they were not the type to ask. One couple told us they ate pizza at night for 3 days because they didn't know what else to add.
Isn't that something?
Because,
that was clever.
But for us, exploring the cookbooks
Right.
really gave us a sense of, this way we can get something that we know we're eating. Because some of the things, such as snails, I didn't want to eat.
Right.
I learned how to say that right away. No. But that was how we use the library. We use it that way, and plus we use it in our graduate studies.
Right, and you
We had the
mentioned
college
an opera.
libraries, but we also, were able to reinforce things by using all the resources here, and we could get books from other libraries if need
Right.
be.
You mentioned the opera and the plays that you
Oh, yeah.
also.
Oh yeah, we were
use
very
the books for
interested
that.
in doing of those things because we were music lovers and we were special opera lovers. So we liked to come and look at the library, review the books. We had some books of our own at home, but we liked to look at them. When the library, I think it was last year, we had an opera singer come with her accompanist. I had seen her perform at the Met, so I was able to go up to her and say, I had seen you perform at the Met when you sang. And I don't know if she was moved by it or not, but she said that was very nice.
I'm sure she was.
But it was a great experience in that respect. When you were a child, we didn't have libraries in our school like they do today. There was a bookcase in the back of the room. And those teachers had to keep those books in good condition. So they very often, not all of them, covered them. in those green book covers we used to use for our textbooks. There was no excitement there. What book were you getting? I know some green book that had a number on it.
Uh-huh.
You know, I had to wait and open it up to do. In our library, you could see the cover and see how colorful that was. Just as children used to look at the album covers of their LPs. I probably just dated myself.
Yes, you
again.
did, a little bit.
But that was really something pleasant to do when you went to the library. I'm sorry I'm jumping around, but
Oh, that's good,
you know,
because
that's
your
why
love
it's
of the
it-
library shows.
It brings back lots of memories.
That's exactly what we were
And
hoping.
that's why I like talking about them that way.
When we were in the library at Plaza Center, and you were a fabulous president of the Friends of the Library, you did all that you mentioned, but you also helped us bring recognition to the community that we needed more space. You mentioned we were inside for cake and coffee so that they could see a visual of
And
how
we talked
tight
about,
it
we
was.
have room. You'll have to be over here because we had the firehouse, and they were very gracious. I used to say to let us share, but we don't have all the books out. We don't have our scrapbooks out. We don't have that room. And by bringing the people into the library and continuing to do that with the mini fair, and also when we celebrated the anniversary, people who were library lovers before could see all the wonders, but it brought in more and more people to see what this could offer to you. And I think that responsibility that the Friends had, I mean, not just buying gifts such as the piano and things like this and getting everything copied so we have a great history of Secaucus. I think it's important that we keep encouraging people to come here and realize what a great community resource it is. Starting the book club, starting the children's programs. I'm thrilled when I come in and I see the little children playing chess on the chess set that we have downstairs. You know, I keep on walking over every now and then hoping they'll say, "Do you want to play with us?" But I mean, I think that we have truly become a resource. And I credit you, Margaret Grazioli, Ms. Studley, for all of that. Because you had to start the interest and bring the interest to the community when we were small and when we have grown.
Yes, and I credit Jennifer May, our new library director, for bringing more of the culturalism
That's right.
into the community. Libraries have to remain relevant, and we move on with everything. When we moved to this new library, now that we mention it, we didn't have too many naysayers. There were a few who didn't necessarily believe the library needed that much space, but most people were with us, and they volunteered. Your spirit of
It was
volunteerism.
unbelievable because I had only heard of one other community that was able to do that, and that was up in Sussex County, where volunteers just carried the books from the old library to the new one, and I believe you must have numbered them, shelves or someone had told them where, and they would bring the books and just set them all up there.
Right.
Once
Well-
they were in the shelves, then your staff was able to do it. That started, I think, a tremendous amount of community effort. I think people were glad to do it. And as for the naysayers, there are many people who see cost, not value. Now, cost and value, people might say, isn't that the same thing? I said, no. Cost, all you think about is the money, the money, the money. Value is what it brings to you.
Right.
We have children here all the time. You have parents bringing in the younger ones. You provided movies. You provided the cultural things. Some of the music programs they have, or speakers. The people who come and volunteer here, like caregivers, teaching people or helping them learn how to be a caregiver. I don't think we realize how many people in town serve as caregivers. You know, or
That's
need
true.
caregivers. So having a program like that, having the younger people have their programs, having programs for both, you know, the adults and the children. It's a continuation thing, and if the parents bring the children when they're younger, we can hope for them to keep on going so that they will come on their own then, and then in turn when they are older bring their children here.
That's exactly right.
I'm all for when the baby is born, get a library card.
Yes.
Why wait? The people
Why
get a
wait?
Social Security card,
Oh,
get your
Get
library,
your library
card.
card. Margaret Grazioli, our former director, used to say this was the one building in the community that you used from birth till death.
True.
So it really is true.
That's true.
You go in and out of the schools, but this one you're constantly using. You have been a wonderful spokesman for the library, and I wish that we could put this on TV to give we'll put it on our local TV, but I wish everyone had the advantage of hearing just what you had to say about libraries.
Well, I like to think of the future, but I am a traditionalist. And probably I will offend everybody now. I want to hold a book.
Yes.
I don't want to hold a Kindle. I don't want to listen to it. I want to be able to hold it and read as long as I can. I don't care if the top of the page is a little worn, because that tells me somebody's read it. And not just one person, many people. When I get a brand new book, but the date is, maybe 10 years before, and I don't see anything happening to it, people didn't like this book. Let me see if there's one that I can judge by that. And I just wish everybody would realize what coming to a library can do for you. The people that you meet, you start a conversation. You have current newspapers. You can look back a couple of days or weeks and see a newspaper in the library. You can go and use, the modern technology and look up books and do things like this. But the book is the essential thing, and reading it is important. And I think that that's what a library means to me. I love to read. I brought back 2 books I'm going to bring back. Take 2 books out. I take 2 at a time, bring them back in 3 days, because I have books home that I'm still reading and rereading. I'm a mystery buff.
I was just going to ask you, what's your favorite?
My favorite? I read Agatha Christie books every year. I used to read them in the summer and just reread them. I watch that when it's on television. I love the way she wrote. I love Miss Marple. I love Hercule Poirot, things like that. And I love some of the new modern mystery writers and such like this. The book club has broadened my reading habits. We have about 12 people. A lot of older residents in the terms of how many years you've taught here, and a lot of new people who have moved into Harmon Cove area. And it's a joy reading the book and discussing it, because we have diversified opinions, but everybody appreciates everybody else's opinion. So I've gotten many new friends. I've broadened my reading habits. I never did have any qualms about offering an opinion, but I think everybody who's a member feels I can offer my opinion here in this reading club. And if I didn't understand something without criticism, I can say, well, I didn't quite get that. What did you see in there? And it's a wonderful experience, just exploring, which I will continue to do forever.
Oh, that's wonderful. And from your book club, there's been many offshoots.
Yes, I know.
There's one here with the staff of the library that has no time to sit at the book club, so they go out to dinner after work. And there are other book clubs that sprung up along the way.
Which is great.
I belong to a dinner book club, so we go to places for dinners and pick something, unusual.
You find
but
it
it's
gives you
your
a chance
book club that started
to
it.
get together with different people, broaden your experiences that way. I've enjoyed that immensely.
Do you have any predictions of what you think libraries might do in the future? Something that you might even have an idea about now?
Yeah, but I'm sure I like it, but I keep on thinking we're all going to have some type of electronic in our house, and it will contain or hook into something that has every book that's ever been written and will be written. And we won't have to move. We'll just sit there, flick on a switch, and we could be reading a book that shows up, and somebody in South America could be reading the same book. I don't like that idea, but I think if we don't run out of power as a country,
yes,
or a world, I think we would do something like that. I think it's going to get to that, but as I said, I still want to hold that book.
Oh, we must have those books. What do we do when we lose our electricity?
See,
we go right to the book and a candle.
Right, the book and a candle is right.
So Marie, I want to thank you so much for sharing this history. Is there anything else you want to add before we close?
I want to thank you for offering me the opportunity, because it brought back a lot of memories for me about, the story how we started, starting and going to the library the first time, walking into the library down at the plaza for the first time, the experience of being president of the Friends of the Library, and being able, not as much right now, to participate continuously and fully, coming to the programs and attending the meetings, because I feel so strongly. I laughingly told my husband many times he must have built many libraries because I was constantly paying his library fines.
Oh.
Because he would get a book and read it quickly, then go back and read it over again to really understand the parts. He read a lot of technical books and enjoyed those, nonfiction, and never brought books back on time. I said, "You are the bane of all libraries." He said, "No, they'll probably name one for me because I'll probably have paid enough fines."
Oh.
So,
That's very cute. That's a cute story.
True.
But don't think that we don't use you to your fullest. Your brain, and I can think people will attest to it from this interview, is still a very, very working organ up there, and you guide us beautifully. So stay there, mentor us, and continue to enjoy your library.
thank you so much.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate you giving me this opportunity, as I said, and I thank you too to my film man over there, Fred. Thank you.
Thank you.
It was very pleasant.
Good. Thank you very much.